All right, we've got someone who watches India pretty closely. Herald Van Der Linde is head of Asia Equity Strategy at HSBC. He's joining in now to chat with us about markets from here. Herald, good morning. Great to have you with us here on CNBC-TV18. Good to see you back. Prashant this side. So what's been the chatter like post the elections here in India, Herald, with investors?
Yeah, hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on again. You just showed a nice chart which showed that the foreigners had seen outflows. Now, we've dug a little bit deeper into this, and this is how I'm going to answer your question. Because if you dig a little bit deeper into it, and we get a lot of data we've collected from all sorts of different funds, our impression is that actually, although foreigners have seen there have been foreign outflows, our impression is that mutual funds have actually been buying. So it's the sovereign funds or maybe the hedge funds that have actually been selling. And this is the story to a large extent. India is expensive. It's a great growth story. But if the market comes off, you see that the long-only funds, they're going to come in and buy. And I think this is what happened with the elections as well. There's a great opportunity for people to say, listen, are things really going to change? At that point in time, we didn't know what the new cabinet was going to look like and these sort of things. But the feeling is that, no, there's not going to be a hell of a lot of change. So we buy into any sell-off. And that's what happened in India, despite the fact that we've seen these foreign outflows. I think that those numbers are veiling the picture, the overall picture and sentiment a little bit.
Herald, on Friday, foreigners bought. Yesterday, we get this daily data, right? Of course, I mean, maybe too micro to look at these daily changes, but 2 days, because they've been sellers relentlessly, they bought the FIs as a category. What should we expect? I mean, expect them to return on the positive side anytime soon, or what? It's not as if the market's down or anything. I mean, locals are not giving that opportunity. They've been aggressive buyers, so if foreigners come, they're going to buy in at high levels.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen?
No, and this is the big story, right? Actually, that and this is not only in India. You see this in other markets as well, and we need to see this in China actually as well. But it's not really happening yet. Locals are buying, so foreigners are becoming less important in the overall direction in markets. When I started up as a young analyst, which was in the previous century, the biggest buys in these equity markets, excuse me, were the foreign funds. That's really changed. The biggest buys these days are the local Asians, the local Indian, the local Chinese, the local Korean, the local Indonesian. And if sentiment among them is good, then things are fine. But my suspicion is that the foreigners have actually been buying and are continuing to will to buy. Their sole concern when it comes to India is it is just a relatively expensive market. So they're going to wait until these PE multiples come off a little bit, and then they say, okay, now we can stomach it. Let's buy some of these stocks.
Okay. Herald, just to go back to the point on policy, now that we know the ministers, and the ministers are more or less the same, which is fine. Ministers can be the same, but would you expect a bit of a tilt, a shift, in terms of where the government will do the bulk of the spending in the budget? Will you be in the camp that believes it'll remain with the economy, capital expenditure, building more roads and infrastructure, or do you think more of the money is going to go towards the rural side? And how would you sort of play for that then in the market interpretation?
Yeah, for the moment, to be honest, I don't really have a clear view on that. We got to see what sort of policy they're going to implement. So that will take a bit of time. My suspicion is very much based on what you just mentioned as well. Most of the key ministries have got the same people in there. That it's going to be a continuation of what we've seen in the past. India needs to build out the infrastructure. It's been doing so, and that is one of the drivers of growth in India, in my view. So that I'm not overly worried about. What we have seen is, of course, that rural demand has been relatively weak as against urban demand and higher-end urban demand. So there's literally a bit more kind of struggle in the rural areas than there is in the cities in India. So maybe there will be a little bit of a shift, and that might actually just broaden the view on our market a little bit more than what we have at the moment. But overall, we just got to wait and see. But I'm not worried that there will be any massive change in policy. I suspect it's going to be a continuation of what we've seen so far.
Hi, Herald. Good morning and good to see you in. This is Nigel on this side. Good to hear that long-only funds will actually look at India from a longer-term perspective, and maybe the selling that we're seeing is from the hedgies, so to call it. All right. But what about other markets? Besides the Indian markets from Asia, I recall in the past you've said that, Taiwan is something that you've liked. Korea is what you've liked. The fear out here is money moving into China? And will they, grab a larger chunk at current valuations? How are you reading this? Have you seen some more money flows out there?
Yeah, we've seen money flowing into China quite substantially. And that is going to come from somewhere. That came from either outside of the region, that also came from Japan, in my view. And maybe a little bit, I think that's just what these hedge fund outflows, they took some money out of India and moved it into China. Now, if you know, and you're right, the flows in India, to a large extent, are also determined by what happens in other markets. So very quickly across the region, ASEAN is quite small, so I'm going to skip over that. Japan, I think, was a story of last year. And we've seen that market really struggles to keep up the momentum that we had last year. So there's been a bit of outflow. In Taiwan, I was in Taiwan last week. Fantastic story on the tech side, AI side, TSMC and these sort of companies. They've performed very, very well. Nothing wrong with that, but some of the key stocks are up 50% year to date. That market has performed very well. So on the margin, it's a bit more of a struggle. In Korea, the story is one of corporate reform and memory prices doing okay. But again, a lot of money has gone into there. So the really one market that stands out is either China, because things are on the margin improving. But China has had a bit of a reset, and now everybody's waiting and seeing what are the policies going to be. There's going to be some important meeting in July. So I suspect China in the very near term is just going to linger on a little bit. So therefore, India, particularly if it sells off a little bit like we had last week, right, suddenly looks relatively attractive. The attractiveness of North Asia, a lot of that is now being priced in. That was the story since the beginning of this year, but probably not over the next couple of months.
Okay, Herald, good talking to you today. I liked how you put it, right? Everybody's just buying their own home market. It's been a different kind of an environment the last couple of months, and actually the last year or so. Everyone's just buying home. Okay, all right, we'll let you go on that note. Have a great day, and we look forward to the next conversation.